Welcome to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast, where we take deep dives into your chosen sources.
Oh, wonderful.
Today,
I love a good deep dive.
yeah, me too. And today we're diving into the world of Islamic jurisprudence with Muwatta Imam Malik, Book 20, Hajj.
Okay.
This book offers a fascinating glimpse, I think, into the practical application of Islamic principles during the Hajj pilgrimage, as interpreted by Imam Malik, a prominent scholar of the 8th century.
Wow. 8th century.
Yeah, we'll be exploring the rituals, rulings, and traditions surrounding this sacred journey, drawing directly from the wisdom and insights shared by Imam Malik.
Sounds good.
Get ready for an enlightening journey as we unpack the intricate details and discover the profound meaning behind the rituals of Hajj.
I am ready. So what's so special about this book?
Well, it's remarkable how Muwatta Imam Malik doesn't just present these abstract theological concepts, but delves into the nitty-gritty details, the real-life scenarios that pilgrims might actually face.
Oh, okay, I see.
Through these specific cases and rulings, Imam Malik provides a framework for understanding how Islamic principles translate into action during the sacred journey.
So it's like a guidebook for Hajj.
It's like a guidebook for navigating the complexities of Hajj, both spiritually and practically, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And one of the first things that caught my attention is the emphasis on purity before even embarking on the Hajj.
Ah, purity.
Yeah, the book highlights ghusl, the ritual purification bath, as a crucial first step before entering the state of Ihram.
Absolutely. Purification is paramount in Islam, and ghusl is considered an essential act of cleansing, both physically and spiritually.
Yeah.
It's a way of preparing oneself for the sacred journey ahead, shedding the impurities of the mundane world, and entering a state of spiritual readiness.
It's interesting how this concept of purification transcends the merely physical. It's about cleansing the heart and mind as well as the body.
Precisely. It's about aligning oneself with the sanctity of the pilgrimage. And the story of Asma bint Umays beautifully illustrates this principle. She gave birth during her journey to Mecca.
Oh, wow.
Imagine the circumstances. And she received specific instructions from Prophet Muhammad himself regarding ghusl and entering the state of Ihram.
Wow. So even in such a challenging situation, purification remained a priority.
Yes. This highlights how fundamental purification is to Islamic rituals. It's not something to be taken lightly or overlooked, even in extraordinary circumstances.
This story really brings to life the importance of ghusl and its connection to the state of Ihram.
Yeah.
It's not just about hygiene, but about a deeper spiritual transformation.
Exactly. And speaking of details, we even get insights into the specific ways in which ghusl was performed. The story of Umar ibn al-Khattab insisting on having water poured over his head during ghusl, despite his attendants' concerns, really struck me.
It speaks to the thoroughness and sincerity expected in fulfilling religious obligations.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about going through the motions, but about a genuine commitment to purification in both body and spirit. Umar's insistence on following the proper procedure, even when it seemed unnecessary, highlights the meticulousness with which these rituals were approached.
It makes you reflect on our own approach to rituals. Do we sometimes rush through them without fully appreciating their significance?
That's a valuable question to consider.
Yeah.
In our fast-paced modern world, it's easy to lose sight of the meaning behind our actions. But taking the time to perform rituals with mindfulness and intention can enhance their spiritual impact.
Absolutely. It's about connecting with the essence of the act rather than just going through the motion.
Exactly.
And moving on from purification, Muwatta Imam Malik then delves into the specific attire for Ihram. The simplicity and uniformity of the garments struck me as a powerful symbol of equality among pilgrims.
You've hit on a crucial point. The Ihram garments strip away all outward distinctions of wealth or social status. Everyone stands before God as equals, clothed in the same simple attire. It's a powerful visual reminder that in the eyes of God, we are all the same.
And there's a story about Talha ibn Ubaidullah wearing a garment stained with mud during Ihram. And Umar ibn al-Khattab reprimanded him for it, emphasizing that even unintentional displays of something like dyed clothing could be misconstrued.
This incident underscores the importance of avoiding anything that might detract from the spirit of simplicity and humility that Ihram represents.
Right.
Even seemingly minor details matter because they can affect the overall intention and focus of the pilgrimage.
It's a reminder to be mindful of even the smallest details when engaging in sacred acts.
Definitely. And speaking of attire, the book also addresses the specific garments for men and women.
Okay.
It's interesting to see the contrasting opinions regarding veils for women.
Yes, some scholars, like Abdullah ibn Umar, stated that women in Ihram should not wear veils or gloves. But then we have accounts from others, like Fatima bint al-Munzir, who recalled women veiling their faces in the presence of Asma bint Abi Bakr.
These differing views showcase the dynamism within Islamic jurisprudence and how interpretations can evolve over time and context.
Right.
It's not always about a single rigid answer, but about considering different perspectives and understanding the reasoning behind them.
So even in the early days of Islam, there were discussions and different schools of thought. It wasn't as monolithic as some might imagine.
Absolutely. These discussions and debates contribute to the richness and complexity of Islamic legal tradition. They demonstrate the ongoing effort to understand and apply the principles of faith in a nuanced and comprehensive way.
Now let's move on to another fascinating aspect of Ihram, the regulations surrounding fragrance. It seems perfume was allowed before entering Ihram and after completing Tawaf of the Kaaba. The story of Aisha perfuming Prophet Muhammad, both before he entered and after he exited Ihram, stood out to me.
This practice highlights the practicality within Islamic rulings.
Okay.
While there are restrictions during Ihram, there's also a recognition of basic human needs and comforts. The permissibility of perfume at specific times demonstrates a balance between adhering to the sacredness of the state and accommodating the human experience.
It shows that Islamic law is not about imposing unnecessary hardship, but about finding a middle ground that upholds both the spirit and the practicality of the rituals.
Precisely, and this balance is further illustrated by the incident involving a Bedouin who wore a shirt with traces of yellow dye. Prophet Muhammad instructed him to remove the garment, wash off the dye, and proceed with his umrah.
That's interesting. So even traces of dye were considered a violation of the Ihram restrictions.
Yes, this incident emphasizes the seriousness of adhering to the prescribed rules of Ihram.
Okay.
Even seemingly minor transgressions were addressed with clear instructions for rectification. It shows that maintaining the purity and sanctity of Ihram was of paramount importance.
It's a reminder that attention to detail and a sincere commitment to following the guidelines are essential during Hajj.
And this incident is juxtaposed with the story of Umar ibn al-Khattab's strictness when he encountered someone wearing perfume during Ihram.
Right.
He questioned the source of the perfume and sternly reminded the individual about the restrictions.
It seems there was a range of approaches in enforcing the rules of Ihram.
Yes, this contrast emphasizes the diverse ways in which Islamic principles were upheld and enforced. While practicality was considered, upholding the sanctity of Ihram was clearly a priority. It's fascinating to see how different individuals interpreted and applied the rules in their own ways.
It shows that even within a framework of shared principles, there's room for individual understanding and application.
Absolutely. And this diversity of thought and practice has contributed to the richness and evolution of Islamic tradition over the centuries.
Now, Muwatta Imam Malik also delves into the concept of miqat, the designated points for entering the state of Ihram.
Okay.
Can you elaborate on the significance of these locations?
The miqat marks a significant transition in the Hajj journey. It's the point at which pilgrims shed their everyday attire and don the garments of Ihram, signifying their entry into a sacred state of being. It's a symbolic act of leaving behind the worldly and embracing the spiritual.
It's like crossing a threshold into a different realm.
Exactly. And the fact that specific locations are designated as miqat highlights the geographical dimension of Hajj. Pilgrims from various corners of the world converge on Mecca, and the miqat serves as a unifying point of entry for those coming from different directions.
It's fascinating how these geographical markers create a sense of shared purpose and unity among pilgrims from diverse backgrounds.
And we see Prophet Muhammad giving specific instructions for different groups of pilgrims regarding their designated miqat. The people of Medina, Syria, Najd, Yemen, all had their own miqat based on their location.
So the system was designed to be accessible and practical for pilgrims from various regions.
Precisely. And while the miqat are clearly defined, we also see instances where individuals like Abdullah ibn Umar entered Ihram at locations other than the specifically designated ones.
That's interesting. What does that tell us about the application of these rules?
It raises an important question about the role of individual circumstances and practicality. While the miqat is clearly defined, there seems to have been some room for adjustment based on individual needs or logistical challenges.
So even in something as structured as Hajj, there was a recognition of human limitations and unforeseen circumstances.
Right.
It wasn't about blindly following rules, but about understanding their purpose and applying them with wisdom and compassion.
You've grasped a crucial point. Islamic jurisprudence acknowledges that life is complex and that applying principles sometimes requires a degree of reasoned judgment and flexibility.
And then we're introduced to the Talbiyah, the invocation recited by pilgrims upon entering Ihram. This beautiful declaration of intention and surrender to God's will really resonated with me.
The Talbiyah is a powerful expression of faith and submission. It's a constant reminder throughout the pilgrimage of the pilgrim's purpose and their complete dependence on God's guidance.
The words themselves are so profound. I am at your service, O Allah. I am at your service, you have no partner.
These words encapsulate the very essence of Hajj, a journey of humility and surrender to the divine. They express a willingness to set aside one's own desires and submit fully to God's will.
And it's amazing that we're even given the precise wording of the Talbiyah as recited by Prophet Muhammad himself. It connects us to the earliest days of Islam and the practices of the Prophet.
It's a powerful link to the past, a reminder that we are part of a continuous chain of faith and devotion.
But even in reciting the Talbiyah, there were differing practices. Abdullah ibn Umar began reciting upon mounting his camel, while others questioned his delayed commencement.
These variations highlight the nuances within Islamic practices. Even in something as seemingly straightforward as the Talbiyah, there were different understandings and approaches.
It's a reminder that lived religion is multifaceted. It's not always about uniformity, but about a sincere effort to connect with the divine within a framework of shared principles.
Exactly, and these subtle differences enrich our understanding of how faith was practiced and interpreted in the early days of Islam. They remind us that there's not always a single right way, but rather a spectrum of sincere efforts to connect with God.
And speaking of different approaches, Muwatta Imam Malik outlines the various types of Hajj, Ifrad, Qiran, and Tamattu. Can you explain the distinctions between these types?
These different types of Hajj offer pilgrims flexibility in how they perform the pilgrimage. Ifrad involves entering Ihram for Hajj only. Qiran involves combining Hajj and Umrah in a single Ihram.
Okay.
And Tamattu involves entering Ihram for Umrah first, completing it, and then entering Ihram for Hajj.
So there are options available depending on the pilgrim's circumstances and intentions.
Exactly, and we see this diversity of practice during the farewell Hajj, where companions entered Ihram for different types of Hajj. Aisha's account describes how these practices coexisted peacefully, demonstrating the inclusivity within Islamic tradition.
It's beautiful how the system accommodates different approaches while still upholding the core principles of the pilgrimage.
This flexibility reflects the understanding that not all pilgrims have the same capabilities or circumstances, and it allows individuals to choose the type of Hajj that best aligns with their abilities and intentions.
But despite this flexibility, there were also disagreements among scholars regarding certain aspects of Hajj. For instance, the debate between Ali ibn Abi Talib and Uthman ibn Affan regarding performing Hajj and Umrah together.
These disagreements underscore the importance of scholarly discourse in Islamic thought. Differences in interpretation are not seen as a weakness, but as a means of enriching understanding and refining legal rulings.
So it's not about blind obedience, but about engaging with the complexities of faith and seeking the most appropriate interpretation.
Precisely. Islamic tradition encourages critical thinking and reasoned debate within the framework of shared scripture and prophetic teachings. It's a dynamic and evolving system that seeks to address the nuances of human experience.
And of course, Muwatta Imam Malik addresses the specific rulings and considerations for women performing Hajj.
It's crucial to recognize that Islamic law takes into account the unique biological realities of women. Adjustments are made for menstruation and childbirth, ensuring that women are not excluded from fulfilling their religious obligations.
For instance, Abdullah ibn Umar clarified that menstruating women can enter Ihram, but can't perform tawaf or sa'i until they are purified.
Yes, this ruling demonstrates the practicality and compassion within Islamic law. Women are not penalized for a natural biological process and are provided with clear guidelines on how to proceed with their Hajj while observing the necessary rituals and restrictions.
And we have the poignant story of Safiya bint Hui, who began menstruating after completing Tawaf al-Ifada. Prophet Muhammad allowed her to leave, highlighting the compassion and understanding within Islamic rulings.
This incident exemplifies the Prophet's sensitivity and consideration for women's experiences. He recognized the hardships Safiya was facing and granted her permission to depart without completing all the rituals. It's a beautiful example of how Islamic law seeks to alleviate hardship and accommodate individual circumstances.
It's truly heartwarming to see such compassion and understanding reflected in these rulings.
And this approach is consistent throughout Muwatta Imam Malik. It's a testament to the inherent justice and mercy at the heart of Islamic teachings. Welcome back to our deep dive into Muwatta Imam Malik, Book 20 Hajj.
Oh, it's good to be back.
We've already uncovered a wealth of insights into the preparations and initial stages of this sacred journey.
Yes, we have.
Now, let's delve further into the heart of Hajj, exploring the challenges pilgrims might encounter and the specific rulings that guide them through these situations.
Okay, sounds good.
You ready for some more deep diving?
Well, I'm always ready for more.
Good. One of the things that struck me in the previous section was how the book anticipates potential difficulties and provides practical solutions for navigating them.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
It's like a roadmap for handling those unexpected twists and turns that we all encounter along the path.
Like a guide for the unexpected.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. Muwatta Imam Malik doesn't shy away from addressing the realities of Hajj.
Mm-hmm.
It acknowledges that pilgrims are human, right? And that things don't always go according to plan.
Of course.
And through these rulings, we gain a deeper understanding of the flexibility and compassion embedded within Islamic law.
Well, give me an example of that.
Okay, sure. For instance, we discussed the ruling on what to do if a pilgrim's sacrificial animal gets injured or goes missing.
Oh, right.
It's easy to imagine the distress such a situation would cause.
Oh, yeah.
But the book offers a clear guidance based on the Prophet's own instructions.
Okay, so what does it say?
Exactly. If the animal is injured, the pilgrim is instructed to slaughter it and offer a replacement.
Okay.
And if it's lost, a substitute must be provided. These rulings ensure that the pilgrim can fulfill their obligation without undue hardship or delay.
That makes a lot of sense. It's reassuring to know that there are contingencies in place for such situations. It speaks to the practicality and understanding inherent in Islamic law.
And this practicality extends to other challenges as well.
Yeah.
For example, the book addresses the consequences of unintentionally violating the restrictions of Ihram.
Like what?
If a pilgrim accidentally cuts their hair or trims their nails, they are required to offer a fidya.
Okay, so what's a fidya?
So a fidya is a form of atonement that can take different forms depending on the severity of the violation.
Uh-huh.
It could involve sacrificing an animal, feeding the poor, or fasting for a certain number of days.
It's almost like making up for it, in a way.
Exactly. So it's about making amends for the unintentional transgression and reaffirming one's commitment to the sanctity of Ihram.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not really about punishment, but about understanding that you made a mistake and making up for it.
Precisely. It's not about punishment, but about acknowledging the mistake and taking steps to rectify it.
Right.
It's a reminder that even in our moments of forgetfulness or error, there's a path back to alignment with the divine will.
Yeah, there's always a way back, it seems.
Yeah.
That's comforting to know that Islamic law provides avenues for seeking forgiveness and returning to a state of purity.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to the mercy and compassion at the heart of the faith.
Absolutely. And this emphasis on seeking forgiveness and making amends is a recurring theme throughout Muwatta Imam Malik. It reminds us that we are all human, prone to mistakes and shortcomings.
We all make mistakes.
Right. But we are also capable of growth and transformation through sincere repentance and striving for improvement.
Okay. Now, the book also addresses the consequences intentionally breaking the rules of Ihram.
Right.
Specifically, it discusses the serious transgression of engaging in sexual relations while in this sacred state.
Yes, this act is considered a major violation of the sanctity of Ihram and requires significant atonement.
Okay.
The pilgrim must not only complete their current Hajj, but also perform a subsequent Hajj and offer a sacrifice.
It seems pretty serious.
Right. It highlights the importance of maintaining a state of spiritual purity and focus during Hajj. It's a time for intense devotion and surrender to God. A time to set aside worldly desires and dedicate oneself fully to the divine will.
So it's not just about the physical journey, but also about the internal spiritual journey.
Exactly. And this transformation requires discipline, mindfulness, and a conscious effort to resist temptations that might distract from the spiritual purpose of the pilgrimage.
Right, so it takes work.
Absolutely. It's a journey that demands both physical and spiritual resilience.
I see. So Muwatta Imam Malik provides the guidance and framework for navigating these challenges and emerging from the experience transformed and renewed.
Exactly. And beyond individual actions and transgressions, the book also sheds light on the collective nature of Hajj and the importance of community support and shared responsibility.
Okay, so it's not just about yourself.
That's a crucial aspect of Hajj that often gets overlooked. It's not just about individual piety, but about strengthening the bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood within the Muslim community.
Can you give an example of how Muwatta Imam Malik highlights this collective aspect?
Certainly. One example is the ruling on what to do if a group of pilgrims misses the wukuf at Arafat due to a miscalculation or unforeseen obstacle.
Oh, I see.
That's a difficult situation to imagine. Missing the wukuf is considered a major omission in Hajj.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in such a case, the group is instructed to complete the Hajj as best they can and then return the following year to perform it again.
Oh, wow.
This ruling emphasizes the shared responsibility of the community in ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to fulfill their obligations.
So even when individuals make mistakes or face unforeseen challenges, the community steps in to support them and provide a path for rectification.
Yes. It's a beautiful expression of solidarity and compassion. It highlights the importance of looking out for one another and ensuring that no one is left behind on their spiritual journey.
Everyone has each other's backs. That's amazing.
Exactly. It speaks to the interconnectedness of the Muslim community and the recognition that our individual journeys are intertwined.
Now, the book also specifically addresses the rulings regarding women performing Hajj.
And this sense of interconnectedness is further emphasized by the rulings regarding women performing Hajj.
Okay.
Muwatta Imam Malik dedicates a significant portion to addressing the specific considerations and challenges women might face during this sacred journey.
Okay.
It's reassuring to see that Islamic law takes into account the unique biological realities of women and provides guidance that is both practical and compassionate.
So it recognizes the unique experiences of women.
Absolutely. The rulings on menstruation and childbirth are clear examples of this consideration. Women are not penalized for natural biological processes and are provided with clear instructions on how to proceed with their Hajj while observing the necessary rituals and restrictions.
So there's understanding there.
Exactly. We already discussed the story of Safiya bint Hui, who was allowed to leave after beginning her period.
Oh, right.
It's a touching example of the Prophet's sensitivity and understanding towards women's experiences.
Yeah, it shows a lot of compassion.
And this compassion extends beyond individual cases. The book emphasizes the importance of protecting women's safety and well-being during Hajj.
Makes sense. And what about the requirement of a maram, a male guardian, for women to perform Hajj?
For instance, it highlights the importance of women traveling with a maram, a male guardian.
Right. Wow.
Yes. While the requirement of a maram is a subject of debate in modern times, it reflects the historical context and the genuine concern for women's safety that existed during Imam Malik's era.
That's a good point.
It's important to understand these rulings within their historical and social context and to recognize that interpretations and practices can evolve over time.
So we need to keep that context in mind.
Precisely. And while the specific forms of protection might change, the underlying principle of safeguarding women's well-being remains a priority.
Right. The core value is still there. Okay, let's move on. Now, beyond the rulings on menstruation and safety, I'm curious to explore how Muwatta Imam Malik delves into the finer details of the Hajj rituals themselves.
So you want to get into the nitty-gritty.
We've discussed the broad strokes, but I'm eager to uncover the nuances and variations in practice that existed even in the early days of Islam.
Let's start with tawaf, the circumambulation of the Kaaba. It's one of the most iconic images of Hajj. Thousands of pilgrims circling the Kaaba in unison, a symbol of unity and submission to the divine will.
Yeah, it's a really powerful image.
It's a powerful image that captures the essence of Hajj. But I understand that even within this seemingly simple act, there are specific guidelines and variations in practice.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
Yes, while the core elements of tawaf are well-defined, there were discussions and differences of opinion regarding certain details.
Like what?
For example, there were differing views on the appropriate pace for performing tawaf.
So, should pilgrims hasten or walk at a normal pace?
Some scholars, like Ibn Umar, advocated for hastening during the first 3 circuits of tawaf as a demonstration of eagerness and zeal. Others, like Hisham ibn Urwa, preferred a more measured pace, emphasizing the importance of contemplation and reverence.
Oh, so there wasn't one right way to do it.
Exactly. So there wasn't a single prescribed method, but rather a spectrum of acceptable practices.
Okay, and that reflects the flexibility within Islamic ritual practice.
Exactly. And this diversity reflects the flexibility within Islamic ritual practice. As long as the essential elements are fulfilled, there's room for individual interpretation and preference.
That's pretty cool. It's fascinating to see how these nuances were debated and considered even in the early days of Islam.
And these discussions contributed to the richness and evolution of Islamic jurisprudence. They demonstrate the ongoing effort to understand and apply the principles of faith in a way that is both comprehensive and adaptable to different contexts.
Right, so Islam was never stagnant. Now, another aspect of tawaf that often comes to mind is the kissing of the black stone.
Right.
It's a practice that holds deep symbolic meaning for many Muslims.
Kissing the black stone is considered a highly meritorious act, but it's not obligatory.
Okay.
Umar ibn al-Khattab famously acknowledged that the black stone is just a stone, but he kissed it nonetheless out of respect for the Prophet's practice.
So even in acts of devotion, there's a recognition of the symbolic nature of rituals and the importance of following the example of the Prophet.
Precisely. It's not about blind adherence to form, but about understanding the deeper meaning and intention behind the actions.
Okay, so the intention is really important.
And this balance between outward form and inner intention is a recurring theme throughout Muwatta Imam Malik. It reminds us that the true essence of Hajj lies in the purification of the heart and the sincere desire to draw closer to God.
It's not just about going through the motions. Now let's talk about Sa'i, the running between the hills of Safa and Marwa.
And this brings us to another pivotal ritual of Hajj, the Sa'i, the running between the hills of Safa and Marwa.
Yes, it's a reenactment of Hagar's desperate search for water for her son Ismail.
Exactly. It's a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unwavering trust in divine providence.
It's a really moving story. But unlike Tawaf, which involves circling a physical structure, how is Sa'i performed? What are the specific guidelines?
Pilgrims begin at Safa and walk briskly towards Marwa.
Okay.
Upon reaching Marwa, they walk at a normal pace back to Safa. This back and forth movement is repeated 7 times, culminating at Marwa.
Okay, I think I understand. And were there variations in practice regarding the pace and manner of walking or running?
Yes, as with Tawaf, there were different approaches.
Uh-huh.
Some, like Hisham ibn Urwa's father, preferred to walk the entire distance, while others, like Sauda bint Abdullah ibn Umar, opted to run between the designated markers.
So again, highlighting the diversity within Islamic practice and the flexibility within the framework of the ritual.
Exactly. And Muwatta Imam Malik also addresses the practical concerns of pilgrims who might forget to perform Sa'i or are unsure about whether they completed it correctly.
What happens then?
So there are contingencies in place for human error or forgetfulness.
Yeah, we all forget things sometimes.
Absolutely. Islamic law is designed to be both comprehensive and compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
If a pilgrim realizes they've forgotten Sa'i, they must return and complete it.
Okay.
And if they're uncertain about whether they performed it correctly, they're advised to repeat it to be certain.
So it's better to be safe than sorry.
It's reassuring to know that there are solutions for those who might err or experience doubt.
Yes, it is.
These rulings emphasize the importance of sincerity and taking the necessary steps to ensure that our acts of worship are complete and performed to the best of our ability.
Okay, let's talk about another important ritual, the wuquf, the standing at Arafat. It's considered the pinnacle of Hajj, the moment when pilgrims stand before God in humility, seeking forgiveness and mercy.
Wuquf is a deeply personal and profound experience. It's a time for reflection, supplication, and the outpouring of the heart. Pilgrims from all walks of life stand together as equals, stripped of all worldly distractions, their hearts focused on seeking divine grace.
It's a powerful image of unity and surrender.
And while the general location for Wuquf is the plain of Arafat, Muwatta Imam Malik clarifies that certain areas are excluded. For instance, Prophet Muhammad specified that the middle of Urana is not part of the designated area for Wuquf.
So there are boundaries even within a vast open plain.
Yes. These boundaries serve to delineate the sacred space and ensure that pilgrims are performing Wuquf in the designated area.
Okay, so it's about respecting the sanctity of the ritual and adhering to the prescribed guidelines. What about the length of time spent standing at Arafat?
And another important aspect of Wuquf is its duration. The general consensus is that pilgrims must stand from the time the sun passes its zenith until sunset.
Wow, that's a long time. It must be both physically and emotionally demanding.
It is, but it's also a time of immense spiritual reward. Pilgrims stand in the presence of God, their hearts open and receptive, seeking forgiveness, guidance, and a renewed connection with the divine.
It's a time for deep introspection and a humbling recognition of our dependence on God's mercy. Now, Muwatta Imam Malik also highlights certain prohibitions during Hajj, specifically mentioning Rafat, Fusuk, and Jidal. Can you explain what these terms mean?
Of course. Rafath refers to sexual relations with women, Fusuk refers to sacrifices made to idols, and Jidal refers to arguing or engaging in disputes.
I see. So these prohibitions encompass actions that are considered impure, disrespectful, or disruptive to the harmony and spiritual focus of Hajj.
Precisely. They serve as reminders to maintain a state of purity, both physically and spiritually, and to prioritize unity and respect over discord and worldly attachments.
It's about creating an environment conducive to spiritual growth and connection with God. Now, let's talk about the stoning of the Jamarat, a ritual that often evokes strong emotions and reactions.
It's a ritual that many find both intriguing and perhaps a bit perplexing.
Exactly. Can you shed some light on it?
The stoning of the Jamarat is a symbolic act that represents the rejection of temptation and evil. Pilgrims cast stones at 3 pillars, representing the devil, reaffirming their commitment to God's path and their resistance to the whispers of evil.
So it's a symbolic way of rejecting evil. Are there specific guidelines for this ritual?
Yes, pilgrims must stone each of the 3 pillars on specific days during the Hajj.
And how many stones must be thrown?
7 stones are thrown at each pillar.
Okay. Is there a specific way to throw the stones?
While there are no strict guidelines regarding the throwing motion, Abdullah ibn Umar emphasized the importance of saying, Allah is greater with each throw.
So again, the intention behind the action is paramount. It's not just about the physical act, but about the accompanying declaration of faith and reliance on God. Is there a particular time for this ritual?
And the timing of the stoning is also important. Traditionally, it takes place after the midday prayer. However, Abdullah ibn Umar advised against stoning the Jamarat al-Aqaba, the largest of the 3 pillars, until after dawn on the day of sacrifice.
Okay, so there's some flexibility in the time frame. What about those who have difficulty performing the stoning?
Yes. For example, camel herders, who were often away tending to their animals, were permitted to stone the pillars at night or to combine their stonings on certain days.
So there were considerations for their circumstances.
This demonstrates the practicality and flexibility within Islamic law. It acknowledges the diverse circumstances of pilgrims and provides solutions that allow them to fulfill their obligations without undue hardship.
So it's about finding a balance between upholding the ritual and accommodating people's needs.
And this adaptability is a recurring theme in Muwatta Imam Malik. It reflects the understanding that Islamic law is not meant to be rigid or burdensome, but rather a framework for navigating the complexities of life with wisdom and compassion.
I see. Now, what happens after the stoning?
Once pilgrims have stoned the Jamarat, they are permitted to shave their heads or trim their hair, signifying their exit from the state of Ihram.
It's like a symbol of renewal, a shedding of the old.
Exactly. It marks the completion of the outward rituals and a return to a more normal state of being.
But are all the restrictions of Ihram lifted at this point?
Not entirely. While pilgrims are allowed to change out of their ihram garments, certain prohibitions remain in place until they have performed the Tawaf al-Ifada, the final circumambulation of the Kaaba.
So the state of Ihram isn't fully lifted until this final Tawaf.
That's right. The Tawaf al-Ifada signifies the completion of the entire Hajj pilgrimage and marks the pilgrim's full return to a state of normalcy.
It's like the closing chapter of an incredible journey.
And it's a moment of both joy and reflection as pilgrims bid farewell to the sacred space and prepare to return to their lives, transformed by their experience.
It must be a really powerful feeling to have gone through all of that, all of the rituals and challenges.
Hajj is a life-changing journey. It challenges, tests, and ultimately strengthens the pilgrim's faith, leaving an indelible mark on their heart and soul.
And Muwatta Imam Malik serves as an invaluable guide for navigating this journey. It's a treasure trove of wisdom and practical guidance that illuminates the path and helps pilgrims make the most of this transformative experience.
It's a testament to the depth and richness of Islamic tradition and the enduring legacy of Imam Malik.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Muwatta Imam Malik, Book 20 Hajj.
It's been a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. An incredible journey so far, exploring the intricacies of this sacred pilgrimage. And I'm eager to see what other gems of wisdom we uncover in this last section.
I think you'll find this final part particularly insightful. As we delve into the remaining sections of Muwatta Imam Malik, we'll gain a deeper understanding of the overarching themes and spiritual significance of Hajj.
One of the aspects that stood out to me in the previous sections was the emphasis on making amends for transgressions or unintentional mistakes. Like, it seems like there's a real focus on providing a path for redemption and ensuring that even when we fall short, we can still find our way back to alignment with the divine will.
You've touched on a crucial aspect of Islamic jurisprudence. It recognizes that humans are inherently fallible, right? And that we're all bound to make mistakes along the way. But rather than focusing solely on punishment, Islamic law provides mechanisms for seeking forgiveness, rectifying our wrongs, and purifying our hearts.
It's a beautiful expression of God's mercy and compassion. Can you give some specific examples of transgressions that require compensation and the ways in which pilgrims can make amends?
Certainly. One example that comes to mind is the killing of game while in the state of Ihram. Remember how we discussed the strict prohibition against hunting during Hajj? This prohibition highlights the sanctity of the pilgrimage and the importance of respecting the sacred space and time.
Yes, it's a time to set aside worldly pursuits and focus solely on the spiritual journey.
Precisely. And if a pilgrim intentionally kills an animal during this sacred time, they are required to pay a penalty known as a kafara. This kafara serves as a form of atonement for the transgression.
And what does a kafara entail? What are the options available to pilgrims?
The specific form of kafara can vary depending on the nature and severity of the transgression. In the case of killing game, the pilgrim can offer a sacrificial animal of equivalent value to the one they killed. They can also provide food for the poor or fast for a specified number of days.
So there's flexibility within the system. It takes into account the individual's circumstances and provides options that are both meaningful and feasible.
Exactly. The goal is not to impose hardship, but to provide a path for sincere repentance and reconciliation with God.
It's about making amends in a way that acknowledges the transgression and demonstrates a commitment to rectifying the wrong.
And this principle extends to other unintentional violations of Ihram as well. For instance, if a pilgrim accidentally cuts their hair or trims their nails, they are required to offer a fidya.
Right, we talked about that before. Can you remind me what a fidya involves?
Similar to the kafara for killing game, a fidya can involve sacrificing an animal, feeding the poor, or fasting for a certain period. This specific form and duration depend on the nature of the violation and the rulings of Islamic scholars.
So there's a consistent theme of making amends through acts of charity, self-denial, or offering a sacrifice. These acts serve as outward expressions of inner repentance and a desire to return to a state of purity.
Precisely. They demonstrate a willingness to sacrifice something of value to oneself as a way of acknowledging the transgression and seeking forgiveness.
It's a tangible way of expressing remorse and a commitment to aligning oneself with the divine will.
And it's important to note that the concept of atonement in Islam goes beyond simply following a set of rules. It's about genuine remorse, a sincere desire to change one's behavior, and a heartfelt plea for God's mercy and forgiveness.
It's about transforming the heart and striving to become a better person.
Exactly. The outward acts are simply a reflection of the inward transformation. Now, beyond the rulings on compensation for transgressions, I'd like to explore how Muwatta Imam Malik highlights the significance of specific locations during Hajj. We've already discussed the miqas, the designated points for entering Ihram, but what other places hold special meaning and are associated with particular rituals or rulings?
That's a fascinating aspect of Hajj. It's not just about performing rituals in any location, but about recognizing the sacredness of specific places and the unique spiritual energy they hold.
Absolutely. One such a place is Muzdalifah, the area where pilgrims spend the night after leaving Arafat.
Oh, right. If I remember correctly, it's the place where pilgrims gather pebbles for the stoning of the Jamarat. It's also a place of rest and reflection after the intense experience of standing at Arafat.
Yes. Muzdalifah holds a significant place in the sequence of Hajj rituals, and Muwatta Imam Malik emphasizes the importance of spending the night there. In fact, Abdullah ibn Umar stated that whoever misses the wuquf at Muzdalifah before dawn has missed the Hajj.
Wow. So it's not just a convenient stopping point, but an integral part of the pilgrimage. Missing the night at Muzdalifah is equivalent to missing the entire Hajj.
That's the understanding based on Abdullah ibn Umar's statement. It highlights the importance of following the prescribed sequence of rituals and recognizing the unique spiritual significance of each location.
It's a reminder that Hajj is not just about performing a set of actions, but about embarking on a carefully choreographed spiritual journey guided by divine wisdom.
And this journey takes us through various locations, each with its own meaning and purpose. Another place mentioned in Muwatta Imam Malik is Al-Muhasab, a place where pilgrims stop to pray on their way back to Mecca from Mina.
Is it obligatory to pray at Al-Muhasab?
No, it's not obligatory, but it's considered a highly recommended act. Abdullah ibn Umar himself would stop at Al-Musab to perform his prayers. So while it's not an essential part of the Hajj rituals, it's an opportunity to add further spiritual merit to the journey.
It's a beautiful example of how, even within a structured framework, there's room for individual piety and acts of devotion that go beyond the basic requirements.
And it speaks to the deep reverence and love that the early Muslims had for prayer. They sought every opportunity to connect with God and express their gratitude and devotion.
It's inspiring to see how they integrated prayer so seamlessly into their lives and their journeys.
And this brings us to the heart of our discussion. As we conclude our deep dive into Muwatta Imam Malik, Book 20 Hajj, I'd love to hear your reflections on the overall meaning and purpose of this sacred pilgrimage. What are the key takeaways that you've gathered from this exploration?
That's a profound question, and I have to say, this deep dive has been a truly transformative experience for me. It's not just about learning the rules and rituals, but about understanding the deeper spiritual significance behind them.
I agree with you there. Muwatta Imam Malik is not simply a dry legal text, but a window into the heart and soul of Islam. It reveals the profound spiritual dimensions of Hajj and the transformative power it holds for those who embark on this sacred journey with sincerity and devotion.
One of the most striking themes that emerged for me is the emphasis on submission and surrender to God. Throughout the book, we see rulings and anecdotes that highlight the importance of humility, obedience, and complete reliance on divine guidance.
You've captured a central theme of Hajj. It's about recognizing our utter dependence on God and our need to submit to His will. It's about setting aside our ego, our desires, and our worldly attachments and surrendering fully to the divine embrace.
It's about recognizing that we are not in control, but rather guided and sustained by a power greater than ourselves.
And this surrender is not about weakness or passivity, but about strength and liberation. It's about finding freedom from the tyranny of the ego and the burdens of worldly concerns. It's about aligning ourselves with the divine will and finding peace and purpose in that alignment.
And Hajj provides a powerful framework for cultivating this surrender. From the moment pilgrims enter the state of Ihram, they shed their outward distinctions, their worldly attire, and their sense of individuality. They become simply pilgrims, servants of God, united in their purpose and their devotion.
It's a beautiful image of unity and equality. All pilgrims, regardless of their background, their social status, or their wealth, stand before God as equals. Their only concern is to seek His mercy and forgiveness and to draw closer to Him.
And this stripping away of outward distinctions allows the inner transformation to take place. It's a process of purification and renewal, a shedding of the old and an embracing of the new.
Exactly. The rituals of Hajj are designed to cleanse the heart, mind, and soul. From the initial ghusl to the shaving of the head, it's a journey of purification and rebirth.
And this purification extends beyond the individual. Hajj is also about seeking forgiveness for the sins of the community and striving for collective righteousness.
That's an important point. While Hajj is a personal journey, it also has profound communal implications. The pilgrim is not just seeking individual salvation, but also praying for the well-being of the entire Muslim community.
It's a reminder that our actions have ripple effects. Our individual efforts towards piety and righteousness contribute to the collective good and the purification of the entire ummah.
And this interconnectedness is a beautiful reflection of the Islamic concept of unity and brotherhood. Hajj brings Muslims together from all corners of the world, creating a microcosm of the global Muslim community. It's a powerful reminder that we are all part of one body, united by our shared faith and our common purpose.
And as we conclude our exploration of Muwatta Imam Malik, Book 20 Hajj, I'm left with a deep sense of awe and wonder at the enduring legacy of this sacred pilgrimage. It's a journey that has been undertaken by millions of Muslims over the centuries and continues to hold the same power and significance today.
It's a testament to the timeless wisdom of Islam and the profound impact that Hajj has on the human heart and soul. It's a journey of submission, purification, and transformation, a journey that leaves an indelible mark on those who undertake it with sincerity and devotion.
And as we reflect on the wisdom of Imam Malik and the countless pilgrims who have come before us, let's consider how we can apply the principles of Hajj in our own lives. Even if we haven't yet had the opportunity to perform this sacred pilgrimage, we can still strive to embody the spirit of submission, surrender, and renewal in our daily actions and interactions.
That's a beautiful way to conclude our deep dive. May this exploration inspire us to deepen our own spiritual journeys and to seek the transformative power of faith in our lives. May we all find the strength and guidance to walk the path of righteousness and to draw closer to God with every step we take.
And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive into Muwatta Imam Malik, Book 20 Hajj. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of discovery. May peace and blessings be upon you all.